Thank you for joining us for this presentation on cybersecurity and awareness for Skidmore College. We are here today to challenge the way you think about cybersecurity in your daily lives. How do you interact with social media? How do you utilize those smart devices, your smartphone, your iPad, maybe your laptop? We're going to provide you with some tools and tips that help you at both home and at work. But before we do that, let's kick it off with a short video.
So back to this hack, this Equifax hack. I mentioned earlier, they may have compromised the information of 143 million Americans, which is a lot of Americans. So in light of this, as a service to the public, we've actually done this before, and it's very effective. We asked people who are passing by our theater today what password they use to protect their personal information. And pay attention, please, because there are a lot of important tips to be shared here.
We are talking to people about the cybersecurity breach at Equifax, and in light of that, we're asking people how secure their internet passwords are. What do you use for an internet password?
You know, I usually stick to my last name. That's probably not the best thing to do, but I usually stick to my last name, a few digits, maybe like a hashtag or something, or...
How do you spell your last name?
Walker.
Walker?
Yeah.
W-A-L-K-E-R?
Yeah.
And then just a few numbers?
Yeah, I probably should have told you that.
And then a hashtag.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
The numbers, like, what do you use, like your birthday or something, your area code?
Yeah, usually like my birthday.
How old are you?
21.
21? What day you born?
November. No, the day, sorry, the 29th.
29th of November?
Yeah.
So Walker 11/29/95.
Woo! I probably shouldn't say that, but
That's okay.
yeah.
How strong is your internet password?
Strong.
What sort of things do you use?
Capital letters, lowercase letters, numbers, characters, everything.
What's a current password you're using?
I don't really want to tell the current password that I'm using, to be honest.
You think I'm a hacker?
Not necessarily. Well, I mean, I guess, you know, like 63XJ9 hat symbol, at symbol, basically all characters, pretty random assortment, and I just try to memorize.
Do you use that one?
Yes.
Thank you. What is your internet password that you use for your email?
In and Out 2017.
That was easy.
Thanks, man.
Thanks.
My internet password is capital W @TER capital B 0 NG Waterbong.
Yeah, we probably got that one.
My internet password is okay.
Yeah.
Mila for what's MILR64.
Well, that's nice. Now Americans can hack into a Russian website. No,
So Jimmy Kimmel in the video mentioned that the Equifax hack was about 143 million. It's actually about 145 million Americans that were impacted by this. And this was their complete credit history, all of their credit card payments, their loan payments, all financial information about them. So what can we do? Well, the first thing we want to do is take advantage of the free credit monitoring that's offered. Anytime an organization has an incident related to credit cards, to debit cards, they offer free credit monitoring. You want to take advantage of that. The next thing you want to do is you really want to freeze your credit. This is going to stop somebody from opening up a new credit card or a loan in your name. As of September 21st, it is now free for everybody. You want to be thinking about it also for your children. You want to freeze their credit as well, because that's become a problem where criminals have stolen the identities and the social security numbers of young kids as young as even birth age up to 5, and ruining their credit before they ever get started. If you need to, you can unfreeze that credit for 24 hours, for 48 hours, so that you can apply for that credit card loan or for the mortgage and then have it be refrozen. Another thing you want to do is you want to really check out what's driving your credit report. Get a copy of that. Do you know what's driving that score? Do you have a missed payment on a credit card? Do you have something that you've maybe 45 days? What's driving your score? Very good resource there is Brian Krebs wrote an article in 2015 on how to freeze your credit and work through that. But you need to be thinking about that, and you need to do it against all three agencies, Equifax, Transamerica, and Experian. So what do these colleges and universities all have in common? What about these? All of these colleges were involved in some kind of security incident or breach. They all had data that was leaked out through them. And we're here today to help you with that cybersecurity awareness. This is your job, to integrate security into everything that we do, both the electronically in the electronic data and in the physical with our paper, both home and at work. We want you to think about information and cybersecurity all the time at Skidmore in your day-to-day activities. Do you handle credit cards, social security numbers, addresses, grades? We want you thinking about how important it is and what can you do better to protect it. Because at the end of the day, security is everybody's responsibility. It's not just the job of IT. It's not the job of campus security. It's everybody's responsibility. You guys are on the front lines. You're going to get that email. You're going to get that phone call. You're going to see something on campus that's slightly suspicious, that doesn't fit right, and it's your responsibility. Well, let's take a second here and define, where are these threats coming from? What kinds of things are we seeing? And the very first one we want to talk about is the cyber criminals. And these are the people who are in it for money. This is a $400 billion a year business. And these guys, they're good. They are at it and they are in it to make money. And the biggest issue that we find is when we capture one, or when we're able to get a hold of one, extradite one from a company, 10 more take their place. They're in it for the money, and even nowadays, they're starting to sell their services. So now I can buy a rootkit, I can buy a ransomware kit for profit, okay? So they're not just doing it themselves, but they're now selling their services all the way around. Another one we need to think about is the nation states. And this is exactly what you think it is. This is the Russia, the Iran, the China, North Korea. These are governments, and they are doing cyber warfare. They're after your information, trying to steal that information any way they can. Note the US also participates in this, and we have both people trying to defend and trying to both hack other nation states. Another group that we have to think about, and these guys are a little bit differently, and these are what we call hacktivists or hacktivist groups, and they're not financially motivated. They're in to fix a social injustice. They're out to right a wrong. And these are groups like Anonymous, WikiLeaks, BuzzSack, and Shadow Brokers. Well, what about this guy? This is somebody we would call the bad employee. They have access to a lot of different systems and applications, but they're unhappy. They're disgruntled, and they are out to do harm. Well, what about these guys? What do we think on these guys? Well, these are our good employees, and you're like, wait a second, I get the bad employees, but the good employees, what kind of damage could they do? Well, they are going to do whatever it takes to get the job done. Could they put a file on a thumb drive, connect to an unprotected Wi-Fi, maybe send data home to work from it on home, so now I have a spreadsheet and data that's left our network. They're going to just trying to get the job done. Let's look at some examples of where human error has caused some issues. When we're configuring our cloud containers, we see time and time again organizations putting information out in the cloud and then leaving it open with no password. Here's a case where a Boeing employee leaked information about 36,000 coworkers by an email. Washington University School of Medicine sent out a spreadsheet to the wrong person for 80,000 patient records, and it took them over 7 weeks to find out. We talked a little bit about Equifax. After the whole Equifax incident happened, they stood up a website where you could go and see if you were personally affected, and they protected it by the worst username and password. It was protected by the username admin, password admin. Wells Fargo employee sent a spreadsheet of 50,000 documents to a former employee. And that finally brings us to our last category, or last threat that we need to work on, and that is you. Well, when is the last time you opened an unknown email, or you allowed somebody to follow you into a secure incident? You know, people are more likely to go to a dangerous website at work, you can either be the strongest link or the weakest link. We need to take and apply operational security to all areas, both electronic and physically. So let's take a look now at what are some of the kinds of attacks that we see? And the very first one is what we call phishing or social engineering. And this one is where they will send you an email claiming to be from somebody that they're not and try and get you to click and do action. And every phishing email works exactly the same way. They're after you to enter either one for your user credentials or your credit card information, financial information. So this is an example of one that looks like it might be coming from Apple support, but if you look at it, it's really Apple at web4.profwh.com, and it's really not from Apple support. Secondly, if you read down through the body of the email, it's going to have a sense of urgency. It's going to have a sense of urgency and a call to action so that you do something. In this case, clicking on a link. You reply back. You open that attention. So every phishing email is going to have a sense of urgency and a call to action. In this case, we think your account has been used for fraud. It has been suspended. Click here to unlock your account. And if you had clicked on it, you would have been taken to a web page that would look just like this. And this looks very, very good. It looks like an Apple login page. But if you notice up at the top, it's really not. It's usersid.net. It's not anything to do with Apple support. Here's one that's come out recently for sharing documents on Google Drive. If you hover over on the link on this one, you would be taken to a malicious site and it would download malicious software. And this is currently affecting about 1 million Gmail users. Again, clicking on the link here might take you to a page that looks like this. Is this a Google login page? It looks really, really good. Or is this a Google login page? One of them is real. One of them is fake. Can you spot it? Let's kind of play like the old eye doctor. Is it 1 or 2? Which one is real? Well, if you said the second one, you would be correct. And let's take a look at them side by side. You can see the one on the left is a little blurrier. The information is kind of a little bit more squished together, where the one on the right is really kind of nice and clean, and as it works all the way down through. But there's one major difference between the two. Right down in the lower right-hand corner, can you see it? It says English, United States. That's that language option. The real one, the one on the right, will have a border box around that drop-down. That's one way you can identify the real one from the fake. Well, here's another email, and this is a popular one this time of year, talking about Netflix. Again, as I read down through the body of the email, there's that sense of urgency. We're unable to validate your billing information, and we're going to suspend your account. So we want to do that in that call to action. Click here to restart your membership. So we're going to go through that, and as we look at the screen, again, kind of looks like a Netflix login. The logo looks good, everything looks good, but when I look up at the URL, it says webcmd.netflixsupportbilling.com way out. This is not netflix.com, so you need to be very, very careful. And on this one, they're after your credit card information. They're after you. They want to get all of this information from you to steal your identity and steal your credit cards. Here's one from Amazon. And it looks like it's coming from Amazon, password assistance. And this one, instead of that click on the link, that call to action is, hey, call us on the phone and give us this information in your email number. They're after your banking credentials on this one. Well, another type of activity that we have to be concerned about is malvertising. This is all those advertisements that show up on the right and the left side of your browser as you're going down through a website. You need to be very, very careful of these. In 2016, Google pulled down 1.3 billion malicious ads. Okay, these are ads that are designed to get you to click on them and so that you download a piece of malicious software. Well, what is malware? Malware consists of anything that will do damage to your machine, to your device. Could be a virus or a worm. We kind of understand those. Trojan, spyware, keyloggers, so that they can track every keystroke that you enter, username and passwords. Ransomware, that's where it goes through and encrypts all of your files so that you can't access anything. And then finally, rootkits. It could come in form of a Word document. A lot of malware gets installed via the document. So, hey, this one has to use Silverlight. Click here to install this and it'll run a download. What it's doing is it's installing malware. Well, ransomware, we mentioned ransomware, it's a huge thing. In 2016 and 2017, we saw absolute explosive growth in ransomware. And what it is again, they encrypt your files on your PC, and then you see a screen looking like this that says, I've encrypted everything, and in order to get it back, you need to pay me some money. And I like this particular one because it starts out and it's, you need to pay $100 in Bitcoin, and if you don't, and 5 days later, it will be raised to $350. Note, that's per device. One of the biggest ransomwares that hit in 2017 was what's called the WannaCry. This affected over 150 countries and 250 million devices. This has been the screen you would have gotten if you had gotten the WannaCry ransomware. And this one's so good that, do you guys see it? They even have help files. How do I get Bitcoin? How do I create a Bitcoin wallet? What do I need to do to work on? How do I make all of this work? So here's the criminals. They're even trying to give you help so that you will end up paying. Another form of attack that is kind of becoming popular, and this is a combination of old school and new school. And I want to talk about first is the vishing, V-I-S-H-I-N-G. That's the vocal, the phone call. And this one has been around for years. That's where I pick up a phone call. Hey, I'm from the tax department. I think I've received a fraudulent tax claim. Can you give me your social security number? Or can you give me your bank account information? This is a phone call. This is old school. Kind of more new school is what's called smishing. And in cybersecurity, we're really creative. We take a known term and then we just keep using it with the different acronyms. Smishing, SMS, text messaging, okay? From that same idea as a phishing email. Here are 3 examples of smishing attacks where you get that text message and again, it looks like they're going to claim they're from somebody that they're not. The one in the upper left corner there says, hey, I'm from Wells Fargo. Well, if you look at who's the sender, it's really not Wells Fargo. Yep, your account's been suspended. Please click here to log in with your account. Again, they're after your user information and your financial information. The other 2 examples, they're BOGO, Best Buy. Okay, hey, you've been selected for a free Best Buy card or free, buy one, get one free. Click here and we'll redeem your prize and enter this code. All of this is the same topic, guys, just using text messaging as an attack vector. Well, how do we protect it? Well, let's talk a little bit about passwords and how to make a good password. But before we do, can you answer the quiz? Which is the strongest password that is listed there on the screen? Is it A, I@4HM3 exclamation point? Is it B, I ride my bike to work exclamation point? Or C, password 17? Well, if you said answer B, you would be correct. And really, guys, there's 2 ways that cyber criminals get your password. Either they will ask you for it in terms of social engineering, phishing, smishing, or vishing, or what's called brute force attack. And using technology that we have today, password B is the strongest password based on length. And the reason I say that is we look at password A and you're like, well, that's the strongest one. It's all random characters and it's 8 characters long and, it doesn't mean anything. And that's exactly what we've taught for 30 years. The issue is that as soon as we do that, we tend to, 1, write it down, making it insecure, and 2, technology that we have today, brute force attack hacking, is where we try and use hardware and software and try and crack that password. And technology we have says that password A will take about 12 days to crack, okay? Password C is under 3 minutes because password has been the #1 most used password for the last 30 years. Password B is about an infinite amount of time. Somebody was now going to Google me and they're going to say it's about 553 years. And I'm like, okay, I'm not going to be around that long. But password B is 553 years to an infinite amount of time based significantly on length. And the magic number, guys, is 12 characters. Every character you add is exponentially going to increase the computing power and the time necessary to do it. So it's password B is the right answer. So let's talk about how do we make a good password? How do we create a good password? Well, we're going to start with thinking about this idea of passphrase, not just password, but passphrase. For the example today, we're going to use I love security awareness training. Okay, who doesn't love security awareness training? But we're going to use that as our base phrase for today. And then we're going to pick the first letter of each word. So it's going to be ILSAT. And then we'll add the name of our website, Skidmore. Substitute in some special characters, and you have a sufficiently complex password that will meet all requirements and work with it. And then we're going to take that same methodology and we're going to apply it to our bank, to Amazon, to PayPal, to Facebook. And life is good. But is it really enough? Well, we don't want, in creating good passwords, we do not want to reuse your password over and over and over again. 62% of people will use the same password at Skidmore for their personal email, for social networking, as in Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and iTunes. If I can capture your password in one of those other things, I'm already halfway home to getting into Skidmore College. And by the way, in July of 2018, Twitter was exposed for storing all of their username and passwords in clear text. So all of those passwords are out there now. And if you use the same password on Twitter as you use as your Skidmore ID, then again, you've not done very secure. Secondly, I mentioned it earlier when we were looking at the strong passwords, keep them confidential. You need to keep them confidential. Most cases, we typically wrote them down. We put them on Post-it notes underneath our keyboard or maybe behind our kids' pictures. We want to keep them confidential. When you call the IT help desk, they're not going to ask you for your password. When you call your bank, they're not going to ask you for your password. They'll ask for other things so that they can verify you, but they will not ask you your password. You need to keep them confidential. Remember, longer is stronger. Okay, 12 characters. And we really want to think about using a passphrase. Sometimes it all breaks down though. I have over 200 passwords that I work with. I need a password manager. And on a password manager, you need to do your research on them. There are a lot of really good options out there. Some of them are free, some of them are a paid subscription. If it's free, it's going to have advertising in it. Some of them allow you to sync them across multiple devices. So you can have it on your phone, your laptop, your iPad, okay? When you do this, it's cloud-based. Can the cloud be hacked? Yes. You need to do your research. Find a password manager that is good for you and use it. And then secondly, you want to use multi-factor authentication. And this is one of three things. Something that you know, your password, something that you have. Do you have a device? Can you receive a one-time text? Can you receive a phone call, an email, a random 6-digit number? Something that you have, your smartphone, or something that you are, biometrics. It's your fingerprint, retinal scan, facial scan. When you can combine two or more, or two of these things together, you are significantly reducing the ability for somebody else to log into your account and pretend that it's you. Again, two items together will significantly reduce that. Quick note on multi-factor authentication. All of these wonderful security questions. What's my mother's maiden name? Where did I go to school? What's my pet's name? What was my best friend's name? What street did I grow up on? These are not multi-factor authentication. One, it's two things that you know. And secondly, all of that information is pretty readily available out on the internet. All I have to do is look up Facebook, look up LinkedIn, Google maybe, and I have all of those answers to your security questions. So be very, very careful with those security questions and don't think of them as multi-factor authentication. Well, what about email security? We kind of looked at phishing emails a little bit more, but again, this is so important. Do you know that 95% of all hacks start with a phishing email? That's social engineering. Here's an example from a bank deposit. Herewith. Well, wait a second. Whoever starts an email with herewith, we are informing your latest direct deposit has been declined. Huh? They're going to decline my deposit. Click here to do that. Now, if you hover over that details link, notice it's craigbad.org. That's not your bank. And again, the sender's address, if I read that, it says no reply at direct.nacha.org. It's really not. It's from iMedia Consulting, so it doesn't match up. Here's one from PayPal, and this one kind of looks good. It looks like PayPal. Warning, your account has been limited. Here's that sense of urgency. Please click here to confirm your thing. When I hover over the link, verified your account PPL secure.site44.com, that's not PayPal. So we need to be very careful with it. Here's another one pretending to be PayPal. And again, if I look at that sender's address, it's PayPal team and it's PayPal at intli.service.com. Dear valued customer, get back into your PayPal account. So your account's been suspended. Click on the link below. But when I look at it, it's really studiodaniel.ca. That's not a PayPal login. This one's from LinkedIn. Somebody wants to be my contact. Notice it's coming in from Della Gordon with no reply, okay? And then the body of the email says Amber Larson, okay? Secondly, there's no decline button on this email. But when I hover over the link, it just gives me an IP address. It doesn't give me linkedin.com. So we get our emails. What are we going to do? Well, we're not going to click on any attachments without first checking that sender. Is it who it really claims it to be? Look at the information in there. Look at the grammar. How is it starting out? Does it match? The time that that email was sent. Look for spelling errors, okay? And changes in diction. That hello, greeting, herewith, okay? You want to look for those types of things in your emails and don't click on anything before you validate that. You're like, wait a second, you don't understand. I get like 300 emails before 10 o'clock, plus I've got classes and all other kinds of work I have to do. I get it. But what we're talking about is about 3 seconds worth of time. Okay, it takes 3 seconds to see that sender, look at get a good feel of the information in there, look at the type of grammar that's in it. 3 seconds. And what's that really cost? Well, for me, it's 3 seconds from protecting you, protecting Skidmore, or being the next biggest headline. You want to also avoid sensitive data, sending out sensitive data if possible, using encrypted mail. And be careful with saving your personal information into your email account. Again, if somebody gets into your email account, you want to be very careful with having that personal sensitivity. When in doubt, pick up the phone, call, text the person. Hey, did you really mean to send me this spreadsheet? You know, I got this link. It doesn't sniff right. You want to clear out your emails periodically. This is to protect you because a lot of times those worms, they'll spread via your email through your contacts list. So clean out your email periodically. And finally, wherever possible, secure your email account with multi-factor authentication because security is everybody's responsibility. Well, what about the internet and browsing? Well, I mentioned password managers earlier. You need to know Internet Explorer, Chrome, Firefox, and Safari are not password managers. They will want you to save a password. They'll prompt you, do you want me to save this password? It'll help the next time you log in, I'll automatically log in. Well, two things. Chrome and Firefox are cloud-based, and they can try and sync across multiple devices. But two, if I get a hold of your laptop, all I have to do is open up Internet Explorer, and I own you. I have all of your passwords, and I can get into all of your accounts. You want to stick to using trusted or recognized sites. Does it say skidmore.edu or is it skidmore.biz? blackboard.com. Okay, is it a normal site that you're used to going to? You know what? When I get those emails with those links in it, I tend to type in the URL, open up my browser and do that. Just last week, I received an Amazon gift card. Instead of clicking on the link to refund my money, I opened up, logged into Amazon, and then copied that gift card number and applied it to my account. So I'm not going to click on the email. I'm going to open up my browser. I want to be very, very careful installing unknown software. Typically, when I talk about things of this nature, I talk about TurboTax. And I get my TurboTax from Intuit.com and not anyplace else because they're the maker of TurboTax. So I want to be careful where I'm downloading software. Keep your browser and your PCs up to date. Do you know that Microsoft and Google and Apple are always doing updates to their products? That's why you want to keep your browser and your PCs up to date. And you can't just rely on that HTTPS anymore. A number of criminals are starting to use it, and many of the browsers nowadays won't even let you go to an HTTP site without giving you multiple warnings. Here's an example again, PayPal. It says, hey, logged in, recover my account. But if you notice that URL, it's HTTPS web-paypal.com-custom-opencase.net. It's really the com-custom-opencase.net is the actual URL. You need to find that first backslash, and then read back to the left. That will tell you where you really are. And especially important with your banking, make sure that you're always looking for a legitimate address, that HTTPS, and the lock icon. And again, here's an example of a legitimate one where it is truly hsbc.com. Again, that first backslash, what's the immediate left? It's got the HTTPS and the padlock. Well, what about our mobile devices? Well, do you know what kind of information you have stored on them? And you really want to really take care of and jailbreaking or rooting your device. That's where you go in and you give it admin privileges. What that does is that removes a lot of the safeguards that are natively on your phone. You want to have a really good password on it or a PIN, biometrics. What do you have that protects the phone? Don't just have a swipe. And if you're an Android user, that little drawing of the house pattern, all I got to do is pick up the phone, look at the glass, and I can see your pattern. What about the information you share with others? Do you know what permissions those apps that you've downloaded on? Can anybody answer? Why does my flashlight app need access to my contacts list? We've all had to say yes to all of this stuff, but be very, very careful with reading down through those permissions that requires. And if you have kids, you really need to be doing this and watching those apps that the kids are installing. A lot of apps that are gauged for under 13 will want to track locations. That's actually illegal. You cannot do that. So you want to be very careful and monitor that with our kids. Maybe considering encrypting your device. If you do a lot of work on your device, if it's a work device, maybe I want to encrypt it. But most definitely, if I lose it, I want to be able to find it and wipe it. Bad enough I lose my phone, but you're not going to gain access to it. You want to think about having antivirus on your phones now. A lot of the phones, you can get a package where it has both antivirus and anti-malware. That will scan, the apps and make sure that everything is constantly current, even when you're doing that. And you want to think about keeping the patches on. Again, those same security things, the fixing of the vulnerabilities are happening on our mobile devices as well. What about the Internet of Things? We seems like we have smart devices all over. Great picture here of one of the home assistants. Well, we just want to be very careful. We need to know that not everything is created equally. We need to think about how secure can it be? Can I get updates? Is it still supported? If I'm buying it used, is there somebody else's data still left on it? Has it been taken back to a factory reset? You want to password protect all of your devices and those accounts. Okay? Can you change that default username and password? Do you know that this is so bad that the state of California has recently passed a law that for smart devices at home, those Internet of Things, they have to have the ability to change the username and password? Can I update the security settings? Am I going to put them on a secure Wi-Fi? Am I going to put them on my Wi-Fi network at home? Do they get a guest network? I need to think through all of these types of ideas. What about social media, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter? We can't even keep track of it all. Well, first thing is you want to be very careful. Only share with what you would share with an enemy. One of the biggest dangers I see over and over again, hey, headed out for vacation, going to spend Christmas with the grandkids. What I've just told the world is that I'm not home. And this includes checking in at my favorite restaurant. I've just said I'm not home for a couple of hours tonight. You need to review those privacy controls, okay? Recently, Europe just has enacted a law called GDPR, General Data Protection Regulations. Those privacy controls are there. And Facebook and LinkedIn, Twitter, they'll say, hey, you get to decide what you post and what you share. Do I share this with my friends? Do I share it with my friends of my friends? Do I share it with the entire world? Or do I keep this private? But you need to review those, because when they set these things up, they don't actually turn them on. That's on you as an individual to turn and set those privacy controls. Be very, very careful with clicking on links and advertisements from Facebook, from LinkedIn, from Twitter. Okay, they could be very malicious, contain malicious advertising. Definitely want to have two-factor authentication turned on so that nobody else is trying to do that. And be very aware of fake accounts. Again, Facebook has been coming out with numbers of fake accounts, and they're constantly trying to remove fake accounts. Twitter has just removed hundreds of thousands of accounts that have been fake accounts. We need to be very careful with that. What about Wi-Fi? Well, if I'm out using public Wi-Fi, if I'm working from Starbucks or maybe from a hotel or an airport, I want to be very, very careful with the name of that Wi-Fi network if I'm unsure. Go up. Usually there's a placard by the cashier. Ask. Make sure you know which Wi-Fi network you're connected to. Criminals are using it. They'll set up a Wi-Fi. Hey, this is the Hilton 5G. And you connect, and now that cyber criminal can see everything you're doing. And be careful if it asks you to download software or enter personal information. I personally find the worst I have is at a hotel may want my room number. They don't want typically a lot of other personal information if I'm connecting to a Wi-Fi. When I'm connecting though to Skidmore, I definitely want to be using a VPN, a virtual private network. That's going to create an encrypted connection between me and Skidmore. And think about using that too for like your smart device, your smartphone, okay? Those antivirus, anti-malware software programs, a lot of times will have a VPN built into it so that you can be protected. Stick to using your carrier's network. If you're really concerned about that free Wi-Fi, don't. Just use your data plan. And then use a hotspot if you're going to use a lot of travel, a lot of data back and forth. Well, what about at home? How do we set up our Wi-Fi networks at home? Well, the very first thing you want to do is change that username and password. Do you know the default is admin? Think about that level of security that you want on it. WPA2 right now is the best that we have. It's a little old. I'm expecting to see WPA3 come out in 2019, but it is the best we have. You know, when you're connected to the network, occasionally you'll see Cisco 6500 or Linksys 3750. Well, that's actually a model. And you want to change that to something of that's going to be more identifiable to more meaningful to you. But if you don't change that name of that network or that SID, what's the likelihood that I've changed the username and password? All I have to do is Google that model number. I'll get the IP address for the admin screen, get the default username and password, and I'm in. You may want to hide your SID. Don't forget to update your router. There's been a lot of vulnerabilities found recently that they're issuing patches on your routers now. And, you know, I have teenagers as kids. My teenagers have friends. Their friends have devices. When they come to my house, they want to access the internet. And I'm okay with that. But I don't want to give them access where I'm sharing my files, where my home network is. So I have a guest network set up for them. What about antivirus? And you're like, wow, this is so old. You're right, it is. It's been around for forever, but you know what? It still works. It works and catches about 60 to 70% of the time. And antivirus nowadays is actually also anti-malware. They're scanning for that malicious software. You want to have something and you want to use it. If it's a Skidmore device, please keep it on, keep it activated. And if you see a pop-up, notify IT. For your personal devices, find a product again that you guys are comfortable with and utilize it. The big thing I have to say is I mentioned 70%. Don't go out and get two products. If I install Norton and McAfee and think, hey, now I got 70% for Norton and 70% for McAfee, I'm all good. Well, you're not, because Norton's going to find McAfee, call it a virus. McAfee's going to find Norton, call it a virus, and cancel everything out. Find a single product and utilize it. And secondly, guys, if you're Mac users, please find a antivirus, anti-malware product that you're comfortable with. Used to be Apple users, oh, we're immune. Nah, Windows was just too easy to target. They're now targeting Apple as well. And think about it for your smart devices. Do you have an antivirus, anti-malware on your mobile device? What about physical security? Well, first thing, guys, lock your workstations. And the rule of thumb is if you cannot see your screen, lock it. It's just a simple, on a Windows PC, it's Windows L. On a Mac PC, I think it's Apple L. It takes less than a second, but if I can't see my screen, lock it. Because if I'm leaving and I go grab a cup of coffee, or if I go to pick up something at the printer and I get distracted, if I get caught talking with somebody, all of a sudden I'm 5, 10 plus minutes away from my screen. And if I'm working on something that's confidential, something that only I should be working on, leaving it open to my screen, it's wide open and it's now exposed. You want to take care of your mobile devices. Don't just leave them sitting out on the table. Don't, when you walk into a room, make sure you take your devices with you. Think about locking your offices. Lock your drawers. Do you have locks on those? And think about that paper that we deal with. This is not just cyber information, cyber data. It's also about the paper. Do you have stuff in your recycling bin underneath your desk? How are you disposing of your documents? You want to be very, very careful of that. Don't leave it laying out and around in the evenings. Or if it's really confidential, keep it under lock and key all the time, unless you're working on it right there. You want to be careful with leaving your keys laying around. And I usually include at this point badges as well. I love to see it when people are wearing their employee badge. That helps you identify, yep, you belong here, I belong here, life is good. But when you go home, take that badge off, put it in your purse, put it in your bag, take it off. Criminals are actually now sitting in grocery stores, coffee shops, waiting for you to walk in. They take a picture of your badge, put their picture on it, superimpose their picture on it, and then they can walk in the next day acting like they belong there. So be very careful. Secure your keys, secure your badges. The picture here is showing this lady, she's working, and he's actively watching everything that she's doing and entering. If you're in public areas, you want to be careful with that, okay? You want to be careful with your surrounding areas. Can somebody see what I'm typing? If you're really concerned about it, think about one of those screen protectors that only allows you to view your laptop straight on and not from any angles. And prevent that tailgating or piggybacking. And this is where you have a secure door entry and you go in and somebody tries to sneak in while the door is still open. You want to be very careful. This typically happens around lunchtime is the biggest thing, when people are coming back from lunch as a group and then they try and walk in right behind you. And the biggest thing, guys, is if you could see something, say something, and do it immediately. We all get distracted quickly. Oh, I'll come back to that at 4 o'clock when I'm done. No, I forget. It's gone. If you see something, say something. Well, let's take a look at a clean desk. So this is an office, typical office. We've been actively working. I've had to get up and go out. What are some things that you would be concerning to you if you came into this workspace? Well, did you see the laptop? It's open. Those Post-it notes, likely that's a password. There's the phone, notebook, the badge. You have work items on the desk, keys, the desktop blotter. What kind of information is filled in that? The recycling bin. There's the briefcase there. Oh, an email posted to the wall. If it's important enough for you to post it to the wall, it's probably important enough for me to read. We just want to be thinking about our workspaces. So what do we do if we have any kinds of questions? Well, if it's cybersecurity related, we want to contact the help desk, okay? Contact them via either email or phone, but we do want you to call the help desk. For physical activities, contact campus safety. And with that, we want to wrap up, and as we do, again, the goal today is, will I think and behave differently from now on, and will I be as secure as I be? So as we finish, let's go through our top 10. Number 10, keep your devices and your apps updated. Practice safe browsing. 8, report all security incidents and suspicious activity immediately. 7, be cautious while using your public Wi-Fi. 6, use long and strong passwords and don't reuse them. 5, lock your workstations and your desks. 4, don't click on those attachments or links in an email without verifying that sender. Think about your paper. Shred or secure confidential documents. Number 2, secure your mobile devices. And finally, number 1, security is everybody's responsibility. Thank you very much for your time today.